Imagine living a life full of dreams, but also full of barriers. This is the story of Fernando, an ordinary young man with a huge dream to turn his passion into reality. But like many others, he faced a world that seemed to be against him. Failures, many. Countless closed doors, days of discouragement and sleepless nights. But Fernando had something that set him apart, a flame that never went out. Persistence. Each defeat felt heavier than the last, and the urge to give up was immense. Friends and family questioned his choices, and doubt was always there with every step he took. But even when everything seemed lost, Fernando made a decision. He decided that no matter how many times he fell, he would always get back up, and that's when things started to change. Fernando could barely imagine the weight of his choices. Each morning seemed harder than the last, as if the universe was testing his determination. He woke up early before the sun rose, hoping that today would be the day something would finally go right. But instead, he found more closed doors, more disdainful looks, and more promises of success slipping through his fingers. There were moments when Fernando looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized his reflection. Deep, dark circles, slumped shoulders, the expression of someone struggling against the current, unsure if he would ever reach the other side. As his dreams seemed to drift further away, doubts began to speak louder. Is this worth it? Why continue if defeat seems inevitable? The words of others weighed heavily. You're wasting your time, Fernando. It's time to be realistic. Friends who once supported him now questioned if he was on a futile quest, and his own family, even they began to lose faith. But there was something deep and silent within Fernando that still resisted. A small, almost inaudible voice that said, "Keep going, just one more day, just one more attempt." But how many more days could he endure? How many attempts would he make before his flame, which burned so brightly, began to fade? Weeks turned into months and months into years. Fernando was exhausted, not just physically but emotionally drained, as if each failed attempt had drained a little more of his soul. He began to wonder if he was chasing a dream or an illusion. It was as if he was stuck in an endless cycle of broken hopes and empty promises. Every new opportunity seemed bright from a distance, but as he approached, it revealed itself as another mirage. It was on a cold and lonely night that Fernando felt the full weight he carried. Sitting in the darkness of his room, he held a crumpled piece of paper, the latest rejection letter. "You are not what we are looking for," the message said, echoing in his mind. He took a deep breath, trying once again to find strength. But for the first time, doubt overtook him completely. Maybe everyone is right. Maybe it's time to give up, he whispered to himself, his voice filled with despair. Thoughts raced in his mind like a whirlwind. Images of all his failures flashed before his eyes, and he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. But then, something unexpected happened. A memory surfaced like a flash in the darkness. He remembered an old conversation with someone who believed in him from the start. It doesn't matter how many times you fall. What matters is how many times you get back up. The words echoed in his mind, reigniting something he thought he had lost. Fernando closed his eyes, feeling the warm tears run down his face. He was on the edge, but at that moment he realized there was still a choice to be made. He could give up, or he could take a step forward, even if the next attempt was the hardest of all. On that silent night, something inside Fernando began to transform. He felt a growing warmth in his chest, as if a new strength was awakening, pushing him not to give up. He got up from the chair with renewed determination and began to organize his thoughts. It was as if he was rewriting his own destiny, reviewing each failure and each small progress he had made. From that early morning, Fernando decided that he couldn't let failures define who he was. He made a list of the lessons he had learned from each mistake and started to devise a new plan, one that incorporated everything he had learned so far. Each step seemed like a challenge, but also an opportunity. Fernando knew that the coming months would be crucial. He needed to turn his frustration into fuel and his pain into purpose. And that's exactly what he did. He began to seek knowledge, learn from past mistakes, and connect with people who could help him achieve his goals. Days became more productive, and the hope that had almost faded began to shine again. Fernando woke up with a new perspective, facing each challenge with renewed energy. Then something magical happened. One of the projects he had invested so much effort in started showing signs of success. It wasn't a giant victory, but it was enough to reignite the flame of hope. He realized he was on the right path, that his persistence was starting to pay off. Each small success, each step forward, was proof that his effort was finally worth it. Fernando had given himself a second chance, and with it, the promise that his journey was just beginning. With renewed hope, Fernando threw himself into the new project. Each day seemed to bring a new challenge, but also a new opportunity to prove to himself that he was on the right path. He dedicated endless hours, working late into the night with a concentration that seemed almost superhuman. But behind the visible effort, a new threat was forming, an unexpected challenge that threatened everything he had achieved. A new barrier appeared, something Fernando hadn't anticipated. It was like an impenetrable wall, constantly testing his determination and skills. Doubt began to haunt him again, and the fear of failing once more threatened to creep in. Sleepless nights returned, and unanswered questions started to linger in his mind. Can I overcome this? Has all my effort been in vain? But instead of surrendering to despair, Fernando decided to face the challenge with a new perspective. He recalled all the times he had overcome obstacles before and used those memories as fuel to move forward. Fernando began exploring alternative solutions, seeking help from experts and innovating his approach. Each small victory in this process became a step toward a larger goal. He realized that the real challenge wasn't the obstacle itself, but how he chose to react to it. And so, by confronting each challenge with renewed courage and an open mind, Fernando began to see a change. The walls started to give way, and new opportunities emerged where there had previously been only frustration. Fernando was stronger than ever, proving to himself and the world that even in the face of the greatest challenges, determination and innovation can turn any obstacle into a chance for growth. With the obstacle finally overcome, Fernando felt a profound relief, but also a new wave of excitement. The hard work was beginning to show tangible results. He reviewed the progress with a sense of pride, seeing the parts of his project coming together like pieces of a puzzle. The ideas that once seemed like distant dreams were now taking concrete shape. However, the real test was just beginning. The market was about to assess the fruit of his efforts, and Fernando knew it would be a decisive moment. The anxiety mixed with hope created a palpable tension in his chest. On launch day, the atmosphere was charged with expectation. Fernando watched as the first feedback started to come in. Each comment, each reaction, was a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Then something surprising happened. The reactions were extremely positive. People were impressed with the innovation and real impact of his work. What had started as a solitary dream was now receiving recognition and approval. The sense of accomplishment was indescribable. Fernando found himself surrounded by a new wave of support and opportunities. He had proven to himself that with persistence and creativity, it was possible to turn challenges into victories. But looking back, Fernando saw not just a milestone of success. He saw the journey of a man who never gave up, who got up after each fall, and in the end, made his vision a reality. And so, Fernando's path not only led to personal success, but also inspired many people to believe that with determination and courage, any dream can be realized. With success assured, Fernando found himself in a new position, that of a mentor and leader. His journey was no longer just about achieving his own dreams, but also about helping others find their way to theirs. He began receiving invitations to speak, where he shared his experience and inspired others to follow their own paths. The stories of overcoming and determination that Fernando told now had a real impact on people's lives. But for him, true fulfillment was not just in personal achievements, but in the ability to create a lasting impact. He started mentorship programs for young entrepreneurs, offering guidance and support to those starting their journeys. Fernando watched with pride as new talents developed, seeing how his guidance helped turn dreams into realities. What had once been a solitary dream was now spreading, influencing and inspiring a new generation of dreamers and achievers. And with each new accomplishment of his mentees, Fernando felt a deep joy, a sense that his legacy was being built. He knew that the true measure of success was not just what he had achieved, but the impact he had on others. His journey, which began with dreams and challenges, now extended beyond himself, creating a wave of change and inspiration. Fernando had turned his struggle into a beacon of hope, showing that true victory comes not only from achieving your own dreams, but from helping others reach theirs. As Fernando enjoyed the fruits of his success and the satisfaction of helping others, a new challenge emerged. This was not just a test of his skills, but a proof of his true resilience. An unexpected crisis hit the market, shaking the foundations of his project. Financial problems and abrupt changes in external conditions threatened to destabilize everything he had built. Fernando found himself once again amid uncertainties. The people who had been inspired by his work were now looking at him, expecting a response, a plan to weather the storm. The pressure was immense. Emergency meetings, challenging numbers, and accumulating criticisms began to pile up. Fernando knew he needed to act quickly, but also wisely. It was a crucial moment that could define the future, not only of his project, but of everyone who depended on it. He isolated himself for a few days, immersed in reflection and strategy. This moment of introspection was a mix of frustration and clarity. Fernando realized that the true test was not overcoming the crisis, but how he would deal with it. Determined not to repeat past mistakes, Fernando reviewed every part of his plan with a fresh and critical perspective. With a strategic vision and a flexible approach, he began to make bold changes. He called his team and presented a new plan that involved innovation and collaboration. Fernando's courage and vision began to inspire once again, and the team united to face the challenge with renewed determination. As he faced the final challenge, Fernando knew that the true test was the ability to adapt and overcome. He was more determined than ever to turn the crisis into an opportunity for growth and renewal, keeping hope alive until the end. After months of intense work and strategy, Fernando was about to see the real impact of his decisions. The market was slowly recovering, and the new plan he had implemented was beginning to show signs of success. A crucial event was approaching, the presentation of his new approach to investors and partners. Fernando prepared carefully, knowing that this presentation would be the culmination of his entire struggle. On the day of the presentation, the room was filled with anxious faces and critical eyes. Fernando felt the weight of expectations, but also the certainty that he was offering something truly innovative. He started his presentation with confidence, the result of months of work and preparation. Each slide and each word clearly showed how he had turned the crisis into an opportunity for growth and innovation. As Fernando detailed his achievements and the new direction of his project, he saw the reactions change. Skepticism began to give way to admiration. Positive feedback started to appear, and investors showed renewed interest. Finally, the presentation ended. Fernando felt a wave of relief and satisfaction. He had not only stabilized his company, but also revolutionized the market with an innovative approach. The acceptance of the new plan marked a new chapter in Fernando's story. He had not only overcome the crisis, but also demonstrated himself as a visionary leader. Success was no longer just a personal achievement, but proof of his ability to turn adversity into victories. With confirmation of success, Fernando was ready to explore new opportunities and continue his journey of impact and innovation. What began as a dream full of challenges was now becoming a continuous source of inspiration and change. After facing many challenges and turning each obstacle into an opportunity, Fernando not only achieved success, but also redefined what it means to persevere. His journey shows that even when the path seems impossible, determination and innovation can lead to great accomplishments. Fernando proved that true success is not just about winning, but about how you rise after each fall and how you use your experiences to inspire and help others. He turned his struggle into a legacy of impact, showing that true victory lies in never giving up and always finding ways to make a difference. And now we want to hear from you. Which part of Fernando's journey inspired you the most? Have you faced challenges that seemed impossible? Share your experiences in the comments and tell us how you overcame obstacles in your life. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more motivational content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your interaction is essential for us to continue bringing stories that inspire and transform. Thank you for watching, and remember, when life challenges you, persist, because true victory lies in never stopping trying.